In the vast expanse of Wyoming's cattle country, fate weaves an unexpected tale. A desperate mother of two, running from a dark past, discovers something extraordinary. A man tied to a tree, left for dead. What she doesn't know is that he's Colton, Blackthorn, heir to one of the largest cattle empires in the American West, betrayed by those closest to him in a ruthless power grab. She saves his life, treating him as just another soul in need, something no one has done for him in years. As their worlds collide, he finds himself drawn not just to her fierce spirit, but to the possibility of the family he never knew he needed. In saving him, she might have saved herself, but in a world of wealth and power, where betrayal lurks, in every shadow, can a woman who's lost all trust and a man who's lost his heart build an empire strong enough to withstand those who would tear them apart? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 nights earlier, Mira Langley's hands trembled on the steering wheel of her ancient Honda Civic. The dashboard clock blinked 2:47 a.m., its red numbers pulsing like a warning beacon in the darkness. In the rearview mirror, her children slept. 6-year-old Emma's head resting on 9-year-old Lucas's shoulder. Their small backpack, hastily filled with whatever they could grab, lay between them. A stuffed rabbit, 2 changes of clothes each, and a worn copy of the Chronicles of Narnia that Lucas refused to leave behind. "Just a little further," she whispered, more to herself than to them. The Wyoming state line had appeared an hour ago, but she wouldn't feel safe until they were deep into its vast wilderness. Denver was now hundreds of miles behind them, along with everything they'd ever known, everything except fear. The gas gauge needle dipped dangerously close to empty. They'd been running on fumes for the last 20 miles, each curve in the road, a prayer for a gas station. But out here, in the depths of cattle country, civilization felt like a distant memory. Emma stirred in the back seat. "Mommy, are we there yet?" "Soon, baby. Soon." The lie tasted bitter, but it was kinder than the truth. That she had no idea where there would be. The engine coughed once, twice, then died. Mira guided the car to the shoulder of the empty highway, her heart pounding. In the distance, a wooden sign loomed. "Welcome to Thunder Valley Ranch, private property." Dawn was breaking over the endless prairie, painting the sky in watercolor, shades of pink and gold. Any other time, it might have been beautiful. Now, it just meant they'd be visible soon. Lucas woke with a start. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. We're just taking a break." She forced a smile into the rearview mirror. "Why don't we stretch our legs?" The morning air bit through their light jackets. May in Wyoming was colder than she'd expected. Emma clutched her rabbit closer while Lucas squinted at the ranch sign. "Are we going to live here now?" Emma asked, her small voice carried away by the wind. Mira knelt before her children, drawing them close. Their faces were tired, confused, but trusting. They still believed she could fix anything, protect them from everything, even after what they'd seen last night. "We're going to be okay," she promised, smoothing Emma's tangled hair. "We just need to walk a little bit, find somewhere safe to rest. Then we'll figure out our next move." Lucas, always too perceptive for his age, studied her face. "He won't find us here, will he, Mom?" The bruise on her cheek throbbed with the memory of last night's final confrontation. Of David's rage when he discovered she'd been secretly saving money, planning their escape. Of the look in his eyes that told her it was now or never. "No, baby, he won't find us." She shouldered the backpack, took their hands in hers. "We're going to start over, just the 3 of us." They began walking, following a dirt road that branched off from the highway. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed, their deep voices carrying across the empty landscape. The morning sun cast their shadows long behind them, 3 small figures. Against the vastness of the Wyoming wilderness, Emma's feet began dragging after the first mile. Mira lifted her, settling her on one hip despite the protest of her tired muscles. Lucas walked beside them, unusually quiet, his hand never leaving Mira's. The dirt road led them deeper into ranch country. Barbed wire fences lined both sides, stretching endlessly toward the horizon. No houses in sight, no barns, no signs of human life. Just the wind in the grass and the occasional cry of a hawk overhead. They were truly alone out here. The thought was both terrifying and comforting. "Look!" Lucas pointed suddenly. "There's a cabin or something." Through the morning haze, Mira could just make out the shape of a small structure tucked against a copse of trees. It looked abandoned, its windows dark, roof sagging slightly at one corner. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. And right now, that was all they needed. What she couldn't know as she led her children toward that lonely cabin was that fate had much bigger plans for them. That somewhere, not far from here, a man named Colton Blackthorne was about to change their lives forever. But first, they had to survive the night. The hunter's cabin proved better than it looked from the outside. Dusty, but solid, with a small wood stove and, miraculously, a hand pump for water in the kitchen. Mira had spent that first day securing what she could, checking windows, gathering firewood, and thanking whatever guardian angel had led them to this place. Lucas took to exploring the cabin's single room like a detective, cataloging their resources. "Mom, there's some canned food in these cupboards, and blankets in the trunk over there." Emma had claimed a corner near the window, setting up her stuffed rabbit as sentinel. She hadn't spoken much since they'd arrived, but her eyes followed Mira's every move, as if afraid her mother might disappear. That night, huddled together on a musty mattress, Mira listened to the wind howling through the pines. Sleep came in fits and starts, broken by every creak of the cabin's aging boards. By morning, dark circles shadowed her eyes, but determination set her jaw. "We need supplies," she announced over a breakfast of stale crackers found in the cupboard. "I saw some wild berries yesterday, and maybe we can find more food in the woods." Lucas straightened, always eager to help. "Can I come with you?" Mira hesitated. The idea of splitting up terrified her, but they'd cover more ground together. "Emma, sweetie, would you be okay staying here? We won't go far, and you can watch for us through the window with Mr. Hoppy." Emma nodded solemnly, clutching her rabbit closer. "I'll be brave, Mommy." The morning air still held its chill as Mira and Lucas set out, following a narrow trail that wound through the trees. They found blackberry bushes first, their fingers and lips staining purple as they picked. Lucas spotted mushrooms, but Mira wouldn't touch them, unsure which were safe. "Mom, look!" Lucas pointed to something glinting in the underbrush. It was a leather-bound journal, its pages weather-worn but largely intact. Inside, neat handwriting detailed cattle counts and business transactions, along with a family photograph tucked between the pages. "We should leave it," Mira said quickly. "Oh, we don't want anyone knowing we're—" A muffled sound stopped her. Both froze, listening intently. There it was again, a low groan, distinctly human. "Stay behind me," Mira whispered, every maternal instinct screaming danger. They crept forward, following the sound to a massive oak tree just off the trail. The sight stopped her breath. A man slumped against the trunk, his wrists bound behind him with blood-stained rope. His expensive suit was torn and dirty, dark hair, matted with blood from a gash above his temple. "Oh my God!" Mira rushed forward, her nursing training taking over. The man's skin was cool but not cold. He hadn't been here long. His pulse was steady, if weak. "Lucas, run back to the cabin. Bring the first aid kit from my bag and the water canteen. Quick!" As Lucas disappeared down the trail, the man's eyes fluttered open. They were a startling shade of blue, clouded with pain, but somehow still sharp, assessing. "Don't try to move," Mira soothed, working at the knots binding him. "You've been hurt. We're going to help you," he coughed, voice raw. "Why?" The question caught her off guard. "Because you need it." A bitter laugh cut short by pain. "Lady, you have no idea what you're getting into." "Probably not," Mira agreed, finally freeing his hands. "But I'm not leaving you here to die," Lucas returned, breath heaving with the supplies. Together they cleaned the head wound, not as bad as it had looked, and helped the stranger drink small sips of water. "Can you walk?" Mira asked. "Our shelter's not far." He nodded grimly, letting them help him up. He was tall, well over 6 feet, and even injured carried himself with an authority that made Mira nervous. What kind of man wore a suit worth thousands? Into these woods, and who had left him here to die? They half carried him back to the cabin, where Emma's eyes went wide at the sight. The stranger caught her fearful look and, despite his condition, managed a gentle smile. "Don't worry, little lady," he said softly. "I'm not as scary as I look." As they helped him onto the mattress, Mira caught sight of a monogram on his torn shirt cuff, CB. Just 2 letters, but something about them nagged at her memory, something she should know, but there would be time for questions later. Right now, they had a life to save, even if that life might end up complicating their own. Far more than they could imagine. The first aid kit was woefully inadequate for the task at hand. Mira emptied its meager contents onto the cabin's rough wooden table. Half a roll of gauze, 3 adhesive bandages, a nearly empty bottle of antiseptic, and some expired pain relievers. She'd have to get creative. "Lucas, honey, remember those yarrow plants we saw by the creek? The white flowers? Can you gather some? And Emma, I need you to help me tear this spare sheet into strips." The stranger, who had so far refused to give his name, watched her from the mattress, those piercing blue eyes, tracking her movements. "You seem to know what you're doing. I was an ER nurse." Before, Mira trailed off, focused on tearing the sheet into even strips. "Hold still, this might sting. This might..." She cleaned his head wound with the last of the antiseptic, then created a poultice from the yarrow Lucas brought back. Her grandmother had taught her about natural remedies, never imagining they'd be needed in a situation like this. An ER nurse, hiding in the woods, he mused, wincing as she worked. "There's a story there." "There's always a story," Mira replied carefully. "But right now, I'm more interested in yours. Who did this to you?" He closed his eyes briefly, pain or memory flickering across his face. "Someone I trusted. Should have known better." Emma, who had been watching from her corner, crept closer. "Did a bad man hurt you, like the bad man who hurt Mommy?" "Emma!" Mira's hands froze on the bandage she was wrapping. But the stranger's response surprised her. His voice gentled, all traces of cynicism vanishing. "Sometimes people we trust turn out to be bad. But you know what? That says more about them than it does about us." Emma considered this, clutching Mr. Hoppy tight. "Are you a good man?" A loaded pause. "I'm trying to be, little one. Some days are harder than others." Something in his tone made Mira look up, catching a vulnerability in his expression that his expensive suit and commanding presence couldn't hide. For just a moment, she glimpsed someone as lost as she was. The day passed in a rhythm of care and cautious conversation. The stranger slept fitfully, fever setting in by afternoon. Mira made tea from pine needles for the vitamin C, coaxing him to drink between bouts of restless sleep. Lucas appointed himself unofficial guardian, positioning himself by the door with a determined set to his young jaw. "I'll watch for bad guys." "Mom, my hero," Mira smiled, ruffling his hair. "But maybe you could guard us by getting some rest. It's been a long day." As evening settled over the cabin, Emma surprised them all by dragging her blanket over to the stranger's mattress. "Mr. Hoppy says you need extra warmth to get better." The man's fever-bright eyes softened. "Mr. Hoppy sounds very wise." "Thank you, Emma." Later, after the children had finally drifted off, Mira changed the bandages one last time. The yarrow seemed to be helping. The wound looked cleaner, less angry. "Why haven't you asked my name?" he murmured, half delirious from fever. Mira wrung out a cool cloth, placing it on his forehead. "Would you tell me the truth if I did?" A weak chuckle. "Probably not. Not yet." He caught her wrist gently as she withdrew. "But I will, soon. You deserve that much after saving my life." "Just rest," she said softly, trying to ignore the warmth of his touch. "Questions can wait. They're good kids," he said, drifting towards sleep. "You've done well by them. They're all I have, not anymore." The words were barely a whisper, perhaps not even meant for her ears. Mira sat back, studying his face in the fading light. The expensive suit, the signet ring on his right hand, the way he carried himself even when injured, everything about him spoke of wealth and power. He was dangerous, she knew that instinctively. Not in the way David had been, with his sudden rages and cruel fists. No, this man's danger lay in how easily he could shatter the fragile safety they'd found. And yet, watching him sleep, seeing how gentle he'd been with Emma, how respectful of Lucas's protective stance, Mira couldn't quite bring herself to fear him. Beyond the cabin walls, a coyote called into the gathering night. Emma stirred in her sleep, and Mira pulled the blanket higher around her daughter's shoulders. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own revelations, but for now, in this moment, they were safe. All of them. She couldn't know that by saving his life, she had set in motion events that would transform all their futures. That the man sleeping fitfully before her held the power to either save them or destroy them completely, and that by morning, the first threads of an unshakable bond would already be woven between them. Dawn broke with a clarity that only mountain air can bring. Mira found their patient already awake, sitting up against the cabin wall, studying a creased piece of paper. With intense focus, his fever had broken during the night, leaving his eyes clear and sharp. "Good morning," she offered, keeping her voice low to avoid waking the children. "How's the head?" "Better." He carefully folded the paper. She caught a glimpse of what looked like property boundaries drawn in precise lines. "Thank you for everything. You sound more like yourself today, Mr." She left the question hanging. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Call me C. for now." "Very mysterious," Mira said dryly, checking his bandages. The wound was healing well, though the bruising had darkened to dramatic purples and blues. "Says the woman who jumped state lines in the middle of the night." His tone was gentle, but his words made her hands freeze. "Your accent's Colorado. Denver, I'm guessing, and those clothes are new, bought in a hurry, probably at a truck stop." Mira stepped back, heart racing. "We should go. We've imposed enough." "Wait." He held up his hands, a gesture of peace. "I'm not a threat to you, I'm just—" He sighed, running a hand through his disheveled dark hair. "I recognize running when I see it, and sometimes the people running have the best reasons." Before she could respond, Emma stirred, sitting up with Mr. Hoppy clutched to her chest. Her face brightened when she saw C awake. "You look better. Does your OE still hurt?" The transformation in his face was remarkable. The shrewd assessment vanished, replaced by genuine warmth. "Much better, thanks to you and Mr. Hoppy's excellent care." Lucas, ever vigilant, was up moments later. He studied C with that too-old look in his eyes before apparently reaching a decision. "Want to see what I found yesterday? There's a whole map of the ranch carved into a tree outside." "Lucas," Mira warned, but C was already nodding. "I'd like that. If your mum agrees, maybe you could show me after breakfast." She wanted to refuse, to maintain the distance that safety required. But the hopeful look on Lucas's face, the first real enthusiasm he'd shown in months, made her hesitate. "Only if you feel strong enough," she conceded. They shared a breakfast of wild berries and the last of the crackers. C insisted on giving most of his portion to the children, an act that didn't escape Mira's notice. Watching him with them, she saw no artifice in his interactions. He listened to Emma's rambling stories about Mr. Hoppy's adventures with genuine interest, asked Lucas thoughtful questions about his discoveries around the cabin. Later, as Lucas led them to the marked tree, C walked slowly but steadily beside her. "Your son's quite the explorer. He had to grow up too fast," Mira said quietly. "Both of them did. That stops now." Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. He was studying the crude map Lucas had found, but his expression was distant. "Calculating. This land, I know every inch of it. These markings, they're old boundary lines. Thunder Valley Ranch has changed a lot since then. You know this area?" He traced a line on the tree's bark. "You could say that. This cabin, it's on the old Morrison property. Been abandoned since old Jack passed away 5 years ago. The land technically belongs to—" He stopped abruptly, turning to her. "How long were you planning to stay here? We haven't really—" The truth was, she had no plan beyond survival. "Mom!" Lucas called from ahead. "There's deer tracks!" As the children investigated the tracks, C lowered his voice. "Listen, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I have resources. Ways to help you stay hidden, stay safe. No strings attached." "Why would you do that?" His eyes met hers, startlingly intense. "Because someone once helped me when I thought I was beyond help, and because those kids deserve a chance at a real childhood." A breeze stirred the pines above them, carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. Mira studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. She'd learned to read men's lies the hard way, but all she saw was a complexity of emotion that matched the turmoil in her own heart. "I don't need charity," she said finally. "Good, because that's not what I'm offering." He pulled out the folded paper from earlier, a detailed hand-drawn map of the entire ranch territory. "I'm offering you a choice, and maybe, if you'll let me, a future." What she didn't yet understand was that his words held more truth than either of them realized, that the choice she made in this moment would ripple out to transform not just their lives, but the very fate of Thunder Valley Ranch itself. The newspaper had blown against the cabin's front step like a message from the outside world. Mira found it while gathering kindling, its pages fluttering in the morning breeze. The headline stopped her cold. "Blackthorn heir still missing. Foul play suspected." Below was a photo that made her drop the kindling entirely. There he was, their mysterious guest, in an expensive suit, standing proudly in front of a sprawling ranch house. Colton Blackthorn, 35, was last seen at Thunder Valley Ranch headquarters 3 days ago. Inside the cabin, she could hear him reading to Emma, his deep voice giving life to the adventures of Lucy and Mr. Tumnus from her cherished Narnia book. Lucas sat at his feet, entranced. They'd formed such an easy bond with him, trusted him so quickly. Had she been a fool to let him get so close? "Your coffee's getting cold," Colton called from inside, using the name she now knew belonged to a man worth millions, a man whose disappearance had sparked a multi-state search. Mira took a steadying breath and walked back in, newspaper clutched in her hand. The domestic scene before her made what she had to do even harder. Emma was curled against his side, pointing at illustrations, while Lucas had borrowed his pocket knife to whittle a piece of wood. "Something wrong?" he asked, noting her expression. Then his eyes fell on the newspaper, and something shuddered behind his gaze. Ah, that's all you have to say." She slapped the paper down on the table. "You're Colton Blackthorn. This is your land, your empire." The children looked up, startled by her tone. Colton gently closed the book. "Emma, Lucas, why don't you go check on those deer tracks we saw yesterday? See if there are any new ones?" Once they were out of earshot, he stood slowly. "I was going to tell you. When? After the police found us squatting on your property, or maybe after your enemies, the ones who tried to kill you, tracked you here." "Lower your voice," he said softly. "You'll frighten the children." The gentle reminder deflated some of her anger. She sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because for the first time in years, someone was treating me like a person, not a fortune." He picked up the newspaper, studying his own photo with distaste. The man in this picture. He's surrounded by people who want things from him. Money, power, favors. But you helped me simply because I needed help. I'm not naive, Mr. Blackthorn. Men like you, men like me?" A flash of something dangerous in his eyes. "You don't know me. I know your type. Power, money, control. It's all a game to you." He moved closer, and despite herself, Mira found herself holding her ground. "Is that what you think I was doing with your children? Playing a game? Don't. Don't what? Point out that they've smiled. More in the past 2 days than I suspect they have in months. That Lucas finally has someone to teach him the things a boy should know. That Emma's nightmares have stopped. Mira blinked back sudden tears. That's not fair. His voice softened. No, it's not. None of this is. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as frustration. You want the truth. My own board of directors tried to have me killed. They thought with me gone, they could sell the ranch off piece by piece. Developers are offering millions for this land. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're dealing with. He reached for the newspaper, turned to an interior page. And because in about an hour, this is going to complicate everything. She followed his gesture to a smaller article. Denver businessman posts reward for missing wife, children. Below was a photo of David, looking every bit the concerned husband in his suit and tie. Not a hint of the monster she knew him to be. He's looking for us, she whispered. Yes. Colton's jaw tightened, and he's hired investigators who are very, very good at their jobs. Through the window they could hear Emma's delighted laugh as Lucas showed her something in the dirt. The sound twisted in Mira's chest like a knife. I have to get them out of here. No! Colton's hand caught hers, warm and steady. You have to let me help you. Really help you with all the resources at my disposal. Why? Why would you risk getting involved? His eyes held hers, and in them she saw not the powerful rancher from the newspaper, but the man who'd read stories to her children, who'd taught Lucas to whittle, who'd chased Emma's nightmares away. Because sometimes, he said quietly, saving someone else is the way we save ourselves. Outside, storm clouds were gathering over the distant mountains. Change was coming, whether they were ready or not. The gold signet ring caught the morning light as Colton turned it in his fingers. The Blackthorn family crest, a bull and a thorned rose, was worn smooth with generations of wear. His father had given it to him on his deathbed, along with words that only now made sense. Power means nothing without something worth protecting. It's beautiful, Emma said, peering at the ring from her perch beside him on the cabin's front step. Like a fairy tale ring. It is, in a way. He slipped it back onto his finger. It tells a story about my family, about who we are and what we stand for. Mira watched from the doorway as he pulled Emma closer, speaking softly about the ring's history. In the 3 days since his identity had been revealed, something had shifted between them all. The pretenses had fallen away, leaving something more honest and more frightening in their place. They'll be coming up the road soon, he said, catching Mira's eye. His ranch foreman, Frank, was bringing a car, and with it the weight of Colton's real world. Lucas emerged from the cabin, carrying Colton's cleaned and mended suit jacket. They'd done their best with it, but the bloodstains had set. Do you really have to go? Yes, but not for long. Colton stood, his movements now strong and sure. And when I come back, I'm going to offer you and your mum and Emma something important. A choice. What kind of choice? Mira asked, though part of her already knew. Before he could answer, the distant sound of an engine broke the morning quiet. Colton straightened, and she watched the transformation with a mix of fascination and unease. His shoulders squared, chin lifted, eyes sharpened. The warmth didn't leave him entirely, but it was tempered now by steel. The black SUV that rounded. The bend was dusty from the dirt road. A weathered man in his 60s stepped out, Frank, she presumed, and stopped dead at the sight of his boss. Jesus Christ, Colt. Frank's voice was thick. We thought, when we found the blood, it'll take more than a few snakes in the grass to kill a blackthorn. Colton's tone was light, but carried an edge. Status report. Roberts called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. They're voting on selling the East Pastures to Mountain View Development. Frank's jaw tightened. They're moving fast, thinking you're out of the picture. Are they now? Colton's smile didn't reach. His eyes. He turned to Mira, and for a moment the mask of power slipped. Give me 48 hours. I'll have things secure by then. Secure for what? But she knew, could see it in the way he looked at her children. He stepped closer, voice low. Let me protect you, all of you. I have a house on the north end of the property. Private, secluded, with the best security money can buy. Your ex-husband would never find you there. And in return, nothing. When she scoffed, he pressed on. I'm not offering a transaction, Mira. You saved my life, you and your children. You reminded me what matters. Let me return the favor. Emma tugged at his sleeve. Will you still read us stories? Colton knelt to her level, and Mira saw Frank's surprise at the gesture. Every night, if you want. But first I have to go deal with some bad people, like in your book. Remember how Edmund had to face the White Witch? Emma nodded solemnly. But he wasn't alone. He had help. That's right. Colton's eyes met Mira's, over Emma's head. Sometimes we all need help. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility. Then Lucas stepped forward, chin set in that determined way of his. Mom, I think we should trust him. He's not like... He's different. From the mouth of her too-wise son, the words carried a weight that broke something inside her. She thought of David's reward poster, of the investigators who would eventually find this cabin, of her children's smiles these past few days. 48 hours, she said finally. Then we'll talk about choices. Colton nodded, understanding all she wasn't saying. He hugged the children, shook her hand with formal grace that didn't match the heat in his eyes, then turned to Frank. Let's go remind some people why you don't cross a blackthorn. As the SUV disappeared around the bend, Emma slipped her small hand into Mira's. He'll come back, won't he, Mummy? Mira watched the dust settle on the road, feeling the weight of the future pressing in. Yes, baby, I think he will. What she didn't say was that his return would change everything, not just for them, but for an empire built on land and power that was about to discover its heart. The dress hung in Mira's new closet like a question mark, sapphire blue silk, elegantly cut, with a price tag that could have covered 3 months' rent at their old apartment. A note pinned to the hanger read simply, "For tomorrow's dinner." See, 2 days had turned into a week. The small guest house on the north property was larger than any home they'd ever had, with sweeping views of the valley and security systems that would make Fort Knox envious. The children had their own rooms for the first time, though they still ended up sleeping together most nights. Old habits die hard. "Mom!" Lucas burst in, face flushed with excitement. "Frank showed me how to ride a real horse." She turned from the dress, smiling at her son's transformation. Gone was the too serious child who watched doors and windows. Here was a boy discovering joy again. "Did you remember to thank him?" "Course!" "And guess what? Colton, he's coming to watch me ride tomorrow. He said maybe we can go on a trail ride soon, all of us." The casual use of Colton's name still jarred her. He'd insisted on it, telling the children that friends didn't need formal titles, but there was nothing casual about their situation. About the protection he'd wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Emma danced in, wearing a new prairie dress, Mr. Hoppy sporting a matching ribbon. "Look what Miss Sarah made us. She says it's proper ranch wear." Sarah, the housekeeper, had taken one look at their meager belongings and appointed herself their personal fairy godmother. The kids adored her, and Mira had to admit it was nice. Having another woman to talk to, even if Sarah's knowing looks whenever Colton visited made her blush. A knock at the door made them all turn. Colton filled the frame, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder, tie loosened. He looked tired but smiled at Emma's twirl. "Very nice, Princess." Sarah's outdone herself. His eyes found the dress in Mira's closet, lingered there. "I hope I wasn't too presumptuous." "It's beautiful, but..." She hesitated. "The board dinner tomorrow. Are you sure it's wise for me to attend?" "They need to see I'm not hiding anything." He stepped in, closing the door on the evening air. "Roberts and his faction are getting desperate. 3 more investors. Pulled out today after I blocked the development deal," Lucas puffed up. "Are the bad guys trying to steal your ranch again?" "Not this time, buddy." Colton ruffled his hair. "How about you take your sister to show Sarah your riding progress?" "I need to talk to your mom." Once they were alone, his casual demeanor faded. "There's something you should know. Your ex-husband's investigators have started asking questions in town. Mira's hand went to her throat. How close? They're focused on the south end of the county, nowhere near here. But, he moved closer, voice gentle. I need you visible. Mira, protected. If you're seen at my side, no one will dare touch you or the kids. Your presence at tomorrow's dinner makes a statement. What kind of statement? That you're under my protection, that anyone coming for you comes through me first. His eyes held hers. Unless that's not what you want. The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Mira looked away first, toward the sapphire dress that represented so much more than an outfit. The board members, she said carefully, they'll assume what they want to assume. Let them. His hand touched her shoulder, warm through her. Cotton shirt. You look tired. Have you been sleeping? The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her. It's strange, having a soft bed again. Keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, not while I'm breathing. The steel in his tone made her look up. His face was closer than she'd realized, eyes intense. I protect what's mine. We're not yours, she whispered, but it felt like a lie. He stepped back, retrieving his professional mask. Get some rest. Sarah will help you get ready tomorrow. At the door, he paused. That color, it was my mother's favorite. She always said it reminded her of the summer sky, full of possibilities. After he left, Mira stood for a long time looking at the dress. Outside, she could hear Emma's laughter mixing with the evening breeze, Lucas's voice animated as he described his riding lessons to Sarah. Somewhere in the distance, a dinner bell rang from the main house. Change was coming, dressed in sapphire blue and carrying the weight of an empire's expectations. The manila envelope sat unopened on Colton's desk, but Mira knew what it contained. She'd seen enough court documents in her time with David to recognize their weight. Frank had delivered them personally, his weathered face grim. They're getting closer, Colton said quietly, watching her from across his study. The dinner party had ended hours ago, but neither of them could sleep. Her sapphire dress rustled as she paced, a sound too elegant for her rising panic. How did they trace us to Wyoming? They didn't, exactly. He opened the envelope, spreading photos across his desk. But they're methodically searching every state. Within driving distance of Denver. Your ex-husband's thorough, I'll give him that. The photos showed David in his element, standing on courthouse steps, giving interviews, playing the part of devastated husband, searching for his family. The restraining order she'd tried to get was conspicuously absent from his narrative. He's always been good at appearances, Mira said bitterly. The caring doctor, the perfect husband. No one believed me when I tried to tell them what he was really like. I believe you. Colton's voice was soft, but carried that edge of steel she'd come to recognize. And I have the resources to prove what he is. She turned to him, hope warring with fear. How? Private investigators of my own, women who've moved away, nurses who've left his practice. People talk when they're approached the right way. He stood, moving to join her by the window. But that's not all we need to deal with. Thunder Valley Ranch spread out below them, moonlight silvering the pastures. From here, she could see the lights of the guest house where her children slept, watched over by Sarah. The sight usually calmed her, but tonight it underscored how much they had to lose. Roberts, she asked, though she already knew. The board members' barely concealed hostility at dinner had been hard to miss. He's rallying support, claiming I'm distracted, that my judgment is compromised. Colton's laugh held no humor. Apparently, taking in a woman and 2 children proves I'm unfit to run my own empire. I'm making things worse for you. No. His hand caught hers, warm and calloused. You're making me remember why any of this matters in the first place. A knock interrupted them. Frank entered, his face even grimmer than before. Sorry, boss, but you need to see this. He handed over a tablet, open to a local news website. Mira's heart stopped at the headline, Missing Denver Family May Have Wyoming Connection. It's starting, she whispered. Colton scanned the article, his jaw tightening. They're citing an anonymous source, claiming to have seen you near Thunder Valley Ranch. Robert's work, I'd bet my life on it. He's working with David, probably not directly. But he knows destabilizing your situation destabilizes mine. Colton handed the tablet back to Frank. Get our PR team on this. I want our own narrative ready by morning. Already on it? And boss, that other matter we discussed, it's confirmed. Roberts met with Mountain View Development 3 times last week. Off the books. Mira watched, understanding darken Colton's expression. He's not just trying to sell the ranch. He's been planning this for months. Your accident was probably meant to be the final piece, Frank said quietly. The implications hung heavy in the study's warmth. Colton turned to the window, his reflection grim in the darkness. Frank, get everyone together. Tomorrow morning, we go on the offensive. After Frank left, Mira found her voice. I should take the children and go. Give you space to fight this properly. Look at me. When she did, his eyes held that same intensity from their first days in the cabin. You're not running. Not again. Not from David. Not from Roberts. Not from any of them. This is your life we're complicating. Your empire at stake. No. He stepped closer, one hand rising to touch her cheek. This is our life now. Those children sleeping in that guest house, they're the future of this empire. A better future than Roberts and his developers could ever imagine. The conviction in his voice made her breath catch. How can you be so sure? Because some things are worth fighting for. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. And some families are worth building an empire around. Outside, the moon sailed behind clouds, shadows shifting across the valley. But in that study, with court documents and threats surrounding them, Mira felt something she hadn't in years, the strength to stand her ground. What she didn't know was that ground was about to become a battlefield, with her children's future and her heart caught in the crossfire. The business contract lay open on the boardroom table, its legal language a maze of betrayal. Colton stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding attention from the dozen board members seated around it. Through the glass walls, Mira could see storm clouds gathering over the mountains. Would you like to explain this, Roberts? Colton's voice was dangerously quiet as he tapped the contract. Particularly the clause about transferring controlling interest upon my unfortunate incapacitation. Roberts, a silver-haired man with cold eyes, didn't flinch. It's standard procedure for succession planning. Given recent events. Colton's laugh held no warmth. You mean my attempted murder? The one you helped orchestrate? Murmurs rippled through the board members. Robert's face reddened. That's a serious accusation, Blackthorne. One you can't prove. Actually, Colton nodded to Frank, who distributed folders to each board member. These are copies of emails between Roberts and Mountain View Development, dating back 6 months. Note the discussion of removing obstacles and ensuring smooth transition of ownership. Mira watched from her position near the door as Roberts's facade cracked. She shouldn't have been here. This was a private board meeting, but Colton had insisted. Let them see what they're really fighting against, he'd said. This is ridiculous, Roberts sputtered. You're letting a woman you barely know influence company decisions. A fugitive, no less. Did you know her ex-husband's looking for her? That she kidnapped those children? Careful. Colton's voice could have frozen hell. Very careful, but Roberts was too far gone to heed the warning. She's using you, Blackthorne. While you're distracted playing family man, we're losing millions in potential development deals. Is that what this is about? Colton pulled another document from his jacket. The millions Mountain View promised you personally. Your offshore account is quite impressive, Thomas. The boardroom fell silent. Roberts went pale. Here's what's going to happen. Colton began walking slowly around the table. The board will vote today on a resolution to remove Roberts for breach of fiduciary duty. Then we'll discuss the future of Thunder Valley Ranch. One that doesn't involve selling our heritage to developers. You can't. I can. I will. Colton stopped behind Robert's chair. Unless you'd prefer I take this evidence to the authorities. Before Roberts could respond, Frank appeared in the doorway. Sorry, boss. Emergency call from security. Mira's heart stopped. The children, 2 men, were caught taking photos of the guest house, Frank said quietly. They had press credentials from Denver. Robert's smile was pure venom. Looks like your little hideaway's been discovered. Colton moved so fast even Mira flinched. His hands slammed down on the table, face inches from Roberts. If anything happens to them, anything, there won't be a hole deep enough for you to hide in. I think we need a recess, one of the other board members suggested quickly. No. Colton straightened. We vote now. Frank, handle security. Mrs. Langley, please stay. The next 30 minutes were a blur of legal procedures and mounting tension. In the end, the vote wasn't even close. Roberts was out, his face ashen as he was escorted from the building. When the room finally emptied, Mira found her voice. He'll go straight to David. I know. Colton was already on his phone. Sarah, lock down the guest house. No one in or out without my direct approval. He turned to Mira. Pack what you need. You and the children are moving into the main house tonight. Colton, the security's better there, and I need you close. His eyes met hers, intense with something more than just protection. I need all of you close. A crack of thunder punctuated his words. The storm was almost overhead now, darkness gathering despite the early hour. Through the windows, Mira could see lights coming on in the main house, her children's future home, if she dared to accept it. Roberts was right about one thing, she said softly. You barely know us. I know enough. He crossed to her, and suddenly she was achingly aware of how alone they were. I know your daughter sings to her rabbit when she thinks no one's listening. I know your son has the makings of a fine horseman and an even finer man. And I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. That's not enough to risk everything for. No, his hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Then why did you risk everything to save a stranger tied to a tree? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Before she could answer, Frank burst back in. Boss, we've got trouble. Roberts just called a press conference, and you're not going to believe who's standing with him. On the security feed, Frank pulled up. David's familiar face filled the screen, his doctor's compassion firmly in place as cameras flashed. The storm had arrived. The security footage played on multiple screens in Colton's home office, each showing a different angle of the press conference unfolding at the Thunder Valley Ranch gates. Sarah had taken the children to the indoor riding arena, keeping them distracted with horses and hot chocolate, while the adults dealt with the storm breaking. Around them, my wife is a troubled woman, David's voice carried through the speakers, practiced concern masking the lie. The stress of her nursing career combined with some unfortunate personal struggles. I only want to help her, to bring her and our children home where they'll be safe. Beside him, Roberts nodded sympathetically. Thunder Valley Ranch has always a valued family. That's why Mr. Blackthorn's recent behavior is so concerning, harboring a fugitive mother, endangering the ranch's reputation. Colton clicked off the feed, his jaw tight. Frank, what's our exposure? Security cameras caught them taking photos of Mrs. Langley at the board meeting. They'll hit the evening news. Frank hesitated. There's something else. Roberts filed a police report claiming you threatened him during the meeting. Good. At their surprised looks, Colton smiled grimly. Let him play that card, because this, he held up a thumb drive, shows exactly who made the real threats. Mira recognized it as the security footage from the boardroom. You recorded everything? I record all board meetings. Standard practice since my father's day. He turned to her, eyes serious. But before we use this, you need to be sure. Once we fight back publicly, there's no going back to anonymity. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. Through the window, she could see the media vans gathering at the gates, their satellite dishes raised like weapons. Somewhere in that crowd, David was playing his role of concerned husband perfectly. He'll never stop, she said quietly. Even if I ran somewhere else, he'd keep looking. Keep playing the victim while making us the villains. Then we changed the narrative. Colton plugged the thumb drive into his laptop. Frank, get our PR team here now and call Judge Matthews. It's time to cash in that favor. The federal judge? Mira asked. Who better to issue an emergency restraining order? His fingers flew over the keyboard. While David's busy playing concerned husband for the cameras, we'll be filing enough documentation to bury him. A knock at the door revealed Sarah, her usually calm face worried. Mr. Blackthorne? The children are asking questions. They've seen the trucks at the gates. Mira started to rise, but Colton caught her hand. Let me, please. Something in his voice made her pause. He'd shed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, looking less like the corporate titan and more like the man they'd found in the woods. The man her children had come to trust. Okay, she whispered. They found Lucas and Emma in the arena's viewing room, pressed against the window, watching the horses below. They turned as Colton entered, their faces a mix of fear and determination that broke Mira's heart. Hey, partners. Colton knelt between them. Looks like we've got some uninvited guests at our gates. It's him, isn't it? Lucas's voice was small. He found us. He did. Colton didn't sugarcoat it. But here's the thing about Thunder Valley Ranch. We protect our own. And you know what you are? Emma clutched Mr. Hoppy tighter. What? You're Blackthorns now. Maybe not by name, not yet, but by choice. My choice, your mum's choice, and most importantly, your choice. He pulled something from his pocket, the signet ring they'd admired that first week. You know what this means? It means family. It means no one fights alone. Lucas straightened, something of Colton's strength reflecting in his young face. Like the knights in my books, they protect people. Exactly like that. Colton smiled. And right now, I need my knights to be brave. Can you do that? Both children nodded solemnly. Emma touched the ring gently. Are you going to marry Mommy? The question caught them all off guard. Mira felt heat rise in her cheeks, but Colton didn't miss a beat. Would you like that? Yes, Emma said simply. You make her smile again. From the doorway, Frank cleared his throat. Boss, Judge Matthews is on the line, and you'll want to see this. Roberts just slipped up on camera. Called the attack on you unfortunate but necessary. Before his lawyer could stop him, Colton stood, squeezing each child's shoulder. Duty calls, partners. Stay with Sarah. Your mom and I have some dragons to slay. As they headed back to the office, Mira found her voice. Did you mean it about them being Blackthorns? He stopped, turning to face her. In the distance, thunder rolled across the valley. I meant every word. The only question is, do you want to be one too? Before she could answer, both their phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. The storm was about to break in earnest, but for the first time, Mira was ready to face it. Not just for her children, but for the future taking shape before her, a future worth fighting for. The photographer studied them through her lens, adjusting for the late afternoon light streaming through the great room's windows. Perfect, she murmured. Mr. Blackthorne, if you could turn slightly, yes, just like that. Mira felt Colton's hand tighten slightly at her waist. Emma sat perched on his knee, Mr. Hoppy proudly wearing a miniature bolo tie, while Lucas stood tall beside. His mother, their first family portrait, a deliberate statement to the world. Sure about this? Mira whispered as the photographer changed lenses. Absolutely. His voice was low but carried that note of steel she'd come to rely on. Let them see exactly what they're up against. The past week had been a whirlwind. Judge Matthews had not only granted the emergency restraining order against David, but had also opened an investigation into his practice after reviewing the evidence Colton's investigators had gathered. Roberts' televised slip about the attack had sparked a federal probe, sending Mountain View Development scrambling to distance themselves. But it was Colton's press conference that had changed everything. She could still see him standing at the ranch gates, proud and unshakable in the morning sun. Yes, I'm harboring Mira Langley and her children, he'd announced to the assembled reporters. "I'm protecting them from a man who abused his position, his power, and his family's trust. And I'm doing it because I love them." The word had rippled through the crowd like lightning. Love, not duty, not obligation, not strategy. Love, beautiful, the photographer declared, reviewing her shots. The light caught the ring perfectly. Mira touched the gold band on her finger. Not an engagement ring, not yet, but Colton's family signet, sized down to fit her. A promise, he'd called it. A declaration. "Can we go riding now?" Lucas asked as the photographer packed up. "Frank said the new foal is ready to meet us." "Go on," Colton smiled. "Take your sister. Sarah's waiting at the stables." They watched the children race out, their laughter echoing through the house that was slowly becoming home. Their home. The board ratified the new trust structure this morning, Colton said quietly. "Thunder Valley Ranch is now legally protected from any future attempts to sell or develop it. And the children? Listed as beneficiaries along with you." He turned to face her. "No matter what happens to me, you'll all be secure. Don't." She touched his cheek. "Nothing's happening to you." His smile was tender. "No, it's not. Because for the first time in my life, I have something worth living for, worth fighting for." Knock interrupted them. Frank entered carrying a tablet. "Thought you'd want to see this. Stock's up 15% since the press conference. Seems the market likes the idea of a family-focused Thunder Valley ranch." "Of course it does." Colton took the tablet, scanning the numbers. "Family ranches have deeper roots, stronger community ties, better long-term stability. Speaking of family," Frank's weathered face creased in a smile. "The staff's asking about Christmas plans. Been a while since we decorated the main house." Mira could see it already. Emma helping to trim a massive tree, Lucas hanging stockings, the smell of Sarah's cookies filling the kitchen, simple things that had been denied them in their old life of fear and shadows. "We'll do it right," Colton decided. "Full celebration. Show everyone that Thunder Valley Ranch isn't just about business anymore." After Frank left, Mira moved to the window. Below, she could see her children at the stables, their small figures dwarfed by the magnificent horses. A year ago, they'd been hiding in a tiny apartment, jumping at every sound. Now they were here, surrounded by love and strength and possibility. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Colton's arms slipped around her waist. "Just thinking about the portrait, about what it means." "It means we're done hiding, all of us." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "It means we're choosing our own story." Through the window, storm clouds were gathering again over the distant mountains. But this time, they didn't bring fear. This time, they were just weather, and her family was safe within walls built of love and trust and steel determination. The portrait would hang in the great room, a testament to the heart of an empire that had found its true purpose. Not in land or money or power, but in the love of a family forged in adversity and chosen in trust. The storm could come. They were ready. The threatening letter sat between them on Colton's desk, its typed words stark against expensive paper. David's medical practice letterhead seemed to mock them with its professional veneer. "As her physician, I have grave concerns about Mira's mental state and her fitness as a mother." "He's trying to have me declared incompetent," Mira's voice shook with rage, "to override the restraining order. It gets worse." Frank laid out more documents. "Roberts has filed a minority shareholder lawsuit, claiming Colton's relationship with a mentally unstable fugitive represents breach of fiduciary duty. They're moving for an emergency injunction to freeze ranch operations." Outside, the first snow of December dusted Thunder Valley Ranch in white. Under normal circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Now it felt like nature itself was trying to bury them. "They're coordinating," Colton said grimly. "David's medical evaluation gives Roberts' lawsuit legitimacy. And if Roberts can freeze operations, the ranch becomes vulnerable to hostile takeover." Frank finished. "Mountain View Development's already positioned to buy controlling interest if we show weakness." Mira paced the study, her mother's instincts, screaming, "The children! If David gets a court to question my competency, that won't happen." Colton's voice carried that steel edge she'd come to rely on. "Judge Matthews is already reviewing our counter-evidence. 3 of David's former patients have come forward with abuse allegations. His own nursing staff is starting to talk, but it takes time," she whispered. "Time we may not have." A knock interrupted them. Sarah burst in, her usual calm shattered. "The school just called. Someone tried to pick up the children." The world stopped spinning. What? A woman claiming to be their aunt, had fake ID and everything. The school followed protocol, called us immediately, but where are they now? Colton was already moving, Frank right behind him. Safe. The security team brought them home. They're in the indoor arena with the horses. I thought familiar things would help. Mira was running before Sarah finished speaking. She found them in the viewing room, Lucas standing protective beside his sister, who clutched Mr. Hoppy like a shield. "Mom!" They flew into her arms. "It was Dad's sister," Lucas said, his voice small but steady, the one who always took his side. Emma pressed closer. "She said we had to come home, that you were sick and needed help. Listen to me, both of you." Mira knelt to their level, feeling Colton's solid presence behind her. "I'm not sick. I'm not unstable. And you are home. Right here." "Damn." "Right they are." Colton's voice was thunder. He turned to Frank. "Get me Matthews, now, and call the FBI. This crosses state lines, makes it federal jurisdiction." "Already done. But boss," Frank hesitated, "Roberts just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Says he has proof you're emotionally compromised, unfit to lead. Let him try." Colton's hand found Mira's shoulder, steady and warm. "I think it's time we show them exactly what kind of family they're dealing with." Later, after the children were asleep in the secure wing of the main house, Mira found Colton in his study. He was standing at the window watching snow fall in the security lights. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "This is all because of me." "No." He turned, and she saw not the powerful rancher, but the man she'd found tied to a tree, stripped to his essential truth. "This is because of them. Men who think power means controlling others. Men like your ex-husband, like Roberts. They don't understand real strength. And what's real strength? This." He crossed to his desk, pulled out a small box. "I was waiting for the right moment, but maybe there isn't one. Maybe we make our moments." Inside was a ring. Not the signet she already wore, but a stunning Montana sapphire set in antique gold. "It was my grandmother's," he said quietly. "She was a ranch girl who married an empire builder. But she always said the empire wasn't in the land, it was in the heart. Colton, marry me. Not because of threats or protection or business. Marry me because we found each other when we were both lost. Because your children have taught me more about love than all my years running this ranch." Because she kissed him, there in the study, with threats gathering like storm clouds and enemies at their gates. She chose love, chose family, chose strength. When they finally parted, his eyes were fierce with promise. "Tomorrow we end this, all of it." Through the window the snow fell harder, covering Thunder Valley Ranch in pristine white. A clean slate, a new beginning. If they could survive what was coming. The ranch deed lay unfolded on the boardroom table, its aged paper a testament to generations of Blackthorn stewardship. Colton had positioned it deliberately, a reminder to every board member filing in of what exactly was at stake. "Before we begin," he announced as Roberts strutted in with his legal team, "I want everyone to look at this deed. My great-grandfather signed it in 1902, not for profit or power, but to build something lasting, something worth protecting." "How touching," Roberts sneered. "But sentiment doesn't run an empire." "No," Colton agreed, his voice deceptively calm. "But it gives us something worth fighting for." The boardroom doors opened again. Judge Matthews entered, followed by 2 FBI agents. Roberts's smirk faltered. "What is this?" "This," Judge Matthews said, "is a federal investigation into conspiracy, attempted murder and corporate fraud." She laid a thick folder on the table. Mr. Roberts, I suggest you call your criminal attorney. You'll need one. You can't, we can, and we are. One of the FBI agents stepped forward. We have evidence of your collaboration with Mountain View, development in the attempted murder of Colton Blackthorne, as well as your involvement in yesterday's attempted kidnapping of the Langley children. The blood drained from Robert's face. That was David's idea. So you admit you've been working with David Langley? The second agent was already taking notes. Before Roberts could dig himself deeper, commotion erupted in the hallway. Frank burst in, his weathered face grave. He's here! David Langley just past the front gates. Colton was already moving. Judge Matthews, go. She nodded. We'll handle things here. He found Mira in their private quarters, already watching. The security feeds. David's expensive car wound up the drive, a police escort behind him. He has a court order, she said numbly. Temporary custody pending psychiatric evaluation. Let him try. Colton's voice was steel, wrapped in velvet. Frank, where are the children? Safe room with Sarah, like we planned. But Frank hesitated. Lucas is asking for his mother. Says he wants to face this together. Something fierce and proud flashed in Mira's eyes. My brave boy. She touched her engagement ring, drawing strength from it. He's right. We face this together. They met David in the great room, where the family portrait now hung above the fireplace. He looked exactly as Mira remembered. Handsome, polished, his doctor's compassion firmly in place, but now she could see the falseness of it all. Mira, his voice oozed concern. You're not well, honey. Let me help you. The only one who needs help, she said steadily, is you. I have a court order, which is superseded by the federal investigation into your medical practice. Colton's voice was arctic. 3 former patients have come forward, David. 3 women with stories remarkably similar to Mira's. And your nursing staff is talking. David's mask slipped just for a moment. You think you can hide behind him? Behind his money? He pulled out his phone. 1 call, and every media outlet in the country hears about your mental breakdowns, your paranoid episodes. No. The voice was young but firm. Lucas stood in the doorway, Emma half hidden behind him but standing tall. Lucas. David's voice softened to silk. Son, your mother is sick. She's not sick. She's strong. Lucas moved further into the room, and Mira saw Colton in his straight spine, his lifted chin. You're the sick one, and we're not afraid of you anymore. Listen here, you little... David started forward, mask falling completely. Several things happened at once. Colton stepped between David and the children. Frank and the security team emerged from hidden positions, and through the grand windows, they could see FBI agents approaching the house. It's over, David. Mira's voice rang with finality. You have no power here. This is a private family matter. He snarled, reaching for her. Colton's hand caught his wrist. You're right, it is a family matter, and this is my family now. David looked around wildly. At the security team, the approaching FBI agents, the portrait above the fireplace showing the family he'd lost through his own cruelty. His face contorted with rage. You think this is over? He pulled away from Colton. Roberts was right. You're all going to... A small voice cut through his threat. Daddy? Emma stepped forward. Mr. Hoppy clutched tight. You need to leave now. This is our home. In that moment, watching her daughter stand brave and tall, Mira knew they'd already won. The rest was just details. But details, as they were about to learn, could still be dangerous. The old rifle hung above the great room's fireplace, a Blackthorne family heirloom that had protected the ranch since its founding. In the chaos that followed, Mira would remember thinking how David's eyes had fixed on it just before everything went wrong. Federal agents are on their way, Frank was saying, his phone to his ear. 5 minutes out, but David was already moving, with the desperate speed of a man with nothing left to lose. The rifle was in his hands before anyone could react, its aged metal gleaming in the winter light. Back off, he snarled, swinging the weapon toward Colton. All of you! "Daddy, no!" Emma's cry pierced the air. "Get the children out!" Colton's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving David. "Now!" Frank moved for the kids, but David's wild laugh stopped him. "Nobody moves. You really think I'd come here without a plan? Roberts is taking care of the board right now. Once you're gone, Blackthorn, this whole empire falls apart." "Roberts is in FBI custody," Colton said calmly. "It's over, David. Put the rifle down." "Over?" David's laugh held an edge of madness. "My life was over the moment she took my children. My reputation, my practice. You did that yourself." Mira found her voice, steel entering her tone. "Every woman you abused, every lie you told—" "Shut up!" The rifle swung toward her, and she heard Colton's sharp intake of breath. "You turned them against me, poisoned their minds." "No, Dad." Lucas stepped forward, shrugging off Frank's restraining hand. "We saw who you really were. Every time you hurt Mom, every time you made her cry, I was protecting our family. This is our family now." Emma's small voice rang with certainty. She clutched Mr. Hoppy tight, but her chin was lifted in that way. She'd learned from Colton, "And you can't hurt us anymore." Something snapped in David's eyes. The rifle swung back to Colton. "Fine, then I'll take everything from you, like you took everything from me." The shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. But it wasn't from David's rifle. Robert stood in the doorway, a modern handgun smoking in his trembling grip. He must have broken away from custody in the chaos, found his way here for one last attempt at destruction. "The Empire falls," he whispered. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Colton, diving forward as David's finger tightened. On the rifle's trigger. Mira, pulling her children down behind the heavy leather couch. Frank, drawing his own weapon with practiced speed. 2 more shots. The sound of breaking glass. A cry of pain. When Mira raised her head, both David and Roberts were down, David clutching his shoulder where Frank's shot had found him, Roberts unconscious from Colton's tackle. The old rifle lay unfired, its antique mechanism having failed at the crucial moment. But there was blood spreading across Colton's white shirt. "No!" The word tore from her throat. She rushed to him as FBI agents finally burst through the doors, securing the scene with practiced efficiency. "I'm okay," he grimaced, pressing a hand. To his side, Roberts was always a terrible shot, just a graze. Emma and Lucas broke free from Frank's grip, running to them. As a family, they huddled together on the floor of the great room while chaos swirled around them. Agents securing. David and Roberts, paramedics rushing in, Judge Matthews arriving with more federal officers. "The children," David called out as they led him away in handcuffs. "Mira, please," "are exactly where they belong," Judge Matthews interrupted firmly. She held up a document. "This emergency order gives full custody to their mother, pending criminal charges against you." "It's over, Dr. Langley." They watched from the window as both David and Roberts were placed in separate vehicles. The winter sun was setting over Thunder Valley Ranch, painting the snow in shades of gold and rose. "Mom," Lucas's voice was quiet. "Are we really safe now?" Colton, being tended by paramedics despite his protests, reached for the boy's hand. "Look up there." He nodded to the old rifle, now back in its place of honor. "My great-grandfather kept that to protect this land and the people he loved. But you know what? The strongest weapon we have isn't a gun." "What is it?" Emma asked, curled against her mother's side. "Family," Mira answered, meeting Colton's eyes over their children's heads. "Real family." Later, after the chaos had subsided, and the children were asleep in their rooms, no more need for safe rooms or hiding, Mira found Colton in his study. He was looking at the family portrait, his bandaged side forgotten. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked softly. "Just thinking about empires." He smiled, drawing her close, "and how the strongest ones are built on love." Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the day's darkness in clean, pristine white. Thunder Valley Ranch stood peaceful under the gathering dusk, its heart no longer just in the land, but in the family that had found each other against all odds. The old rifle would stay above the fireplace, a reminder not of violence, but of what was worth protecting, what was worth building, what was worth becoming. The hospital bracelet was still on Colton's wrist as he sat at the breakfast table, stubbornly refusing Sarah's attempts to make him rest. "The board meeting can't wait," he insisted, though his voice was rough with fatigue. "Not with everything that's happened." "The board can wait one more day," Mira said firmly, placing a cup of coffee in front of him. "Doctor's orders." "You're not that kind of doctor," he grumbled. But his eyes softened as Emma climbed into his lap, careful of his injured side. "Does it hurt bad?" she asked, touching the bracelet with gentle fingers. "Not anymore, Princess." He kissed the top of her head. "Besides, I have the best nurses in the world taking care of me." Through the morning window, Thunder Valley Ranch was transforming under December's first real snow. The events of yesterday felt almost dreamlike. The confrontation, the shots, the arrests that had made national headlines. "Thunder Valley Siege ends in arrests," screamed the papers, though Frank had kept them away from the children. Lucas came in from the stables, his cheeks red from cold. "Frank says all the horses are okay. They were scared by the noise yesterday, but they're calm now." "Just like us," Mira said softly, running a hand through her son's hair. He'd been so brave, standing up to David. They both had. "Ms. Sarah?" Emma looked up from examining Colton's bracelet. "Can we still have Christmas here, even with the bad things that happened?" "Oh, sweetheart." Sarah paused in her breakfast preparations. "We're going to have the best Christmas this old house has seen in years. Right, Mr. Blackthorne?" "Absolutely." Colton's voice carried that note of steel, even through his exhaustion. "In fact, I was thinking we might make it official before then." Mira's hand froze on her coffee cup. "The wedding? Unless you want to wait." But his eyes told her he already knew her answer. "No," she said softly. "No more waiting." The day unfolded in a gentle rhythm of recovery. Frank brought updates from the ranch operations, the board unanimously backing Colton's leadership, Mountain View Development withdrawing all offers, the press gradually dispersing from the gates. Judge Matthews called with news that David and Roberts were being held, without bail, their connections making them flight risks, but it was the smaller moments that held the most healing. Emma setting up a nurse's station for Mr. Hoppy, complete with a tiny bandage matching Colton's. Lucas showing his mother the foal he'd helped deliver last week, his pride shining through as he explained everything Frank had taught him. Sarah, humming Christmas carols as she decorated, refusing to let violence dim the season's joy. By evening, snow was falling again. Colton stood at the great room window, watching it paint the world clean. Mira joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Penny, for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about the hospital," he said quietly. "When they were patching me up, all I could think about was getting back here. Not to the ranch or the empire, but to this. To all of you." She touched the bracelet on his wrist. "You scared me, you know, when I saw the blood." "Hey," he turned. To her, his good arm pulling her close. "It'll take more than a poor shot like Roberts to keep me from our happy ending." "Is that what this is?" "No." His smile was tender. "This is just the beginning." From the hallway came the sound of children's laughter. Emma's voice rang out, "Lucas, Mr. Hoppy needs his medicine." "Coming, Dr. Emma." Colton chuckled, then winced slightly. "They're healing too, aren't they? In their own way." "We all are." Mira rested her head against his shoulder, careful of his injury. "This morning, Lucas told me he doesn't have the nightmares anymore. The ones about David finding us." "Good." The word held years of promise. "Because the only thing finding you from now on is happiness." Sarah appeared in the doorway, trying to hide her smile. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a small situation in the kitchen. Seems Dr. Emma has prescribed chocolate chip cookies for all her patients, and she's quite insistent." "Well," Colton straightened with exaggerated seriousness, "we can't ignore doctor's orders, can we?" As they headed toward the kitchen, Mira paused to look back at the great room. The old rifle still hung above the fireplace, but it seemed different. Now, less a weapon, more a testament to survival, to protection, to love. The hospital bracelet would join it soon in the family archive, another symbol of what they'd overcome together. But for now, it served as a reminder, not of violence or fear, but of how far they'd come, of what they'd built from the ashes of their old lives. In the kitchen, Emma was wearing a makeshift doctor's coat fashioned from one of Sarah's aprons, prescribing cookies with solemn authority, while Lucas played nurse. Their laughter echoed through the house, chasing away the last shadows of yesterday's darkness. They were home, they were healing, they were family. The adoption papers sat on Judge Matthews's desk, their crisp legal pages holding the promise of a new future. Emma swung her feet in the oversized chair, Mr. Hoppy wearing his best bow tie for the occasion. Lucas sat straighter, trying to match Colton's quiet dignity. Now then, Judge Matthews smiled at the children, her usual judicial severity softened. I understand you both have something to say before we make this official? Lucas nodded, pulling out a carefully folded paper. I wrote it down, like a proper legal document. He glanced at Colton, who nodded encouragement. My sister and I want to be Blackthorns, Lucas read, his young voice steady. Not because of the ranch or the horses or even the amazing Christmas tree we got to decorate. We want it because Colton showed us what a real dad is supposed to be. He protects us, but not by making us afraid. He makes us strong by loving us. Emma bounced in her seat. My turn. She held up a crayon drawing of their family, complete with Mr. Hoppy and the horses. And we want Mom to be happy forever and ever. Colton makes her smile the real smile, not the pretend one from before. Mira blinked back tears as Colton squeezed her hand. The judge was beaming. Well, I'd say that's as fine a legal argument as I've heard in my courtroom. She picked up her pen. Shall we make it official? The signing took only moments, but its impact would last lifetimes. With each signature, the last shadows of their old life fell away. David had signed away his parental rights from jail, his empire of lies crumbling under federal investigation. Roberts faced similar charges. His betrayal of Thunder Valley Ranch, adding years to his sentence. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blackthorn. Judge Matthews handed them the final papers. And congratulations to you too, Lucas and Emma Blackthorn. Emma tugged at Colton's sleeve. Does this mean you're really our daddy now? Forever and ever? He knelt to her level, voice rough with emotion. I've been your daddy since the day you helped nurse me back to health with Mr. Hoppy. This just makes it official for everyone else to see. Lucas straightened his tie, a miniature version of Colton's. Does this mean I can come to board meetings? Now, Frank says I need to learn about the ranch operations. One step at a time, partner, Colton laughed. But yes, you'll learn everything about running Thunder Valley Ranch. Both of you will. This legacy belongs to all of us now. Outside the judge's chambers, Sarah waited with Frank and a small gathering of ranch staff. A cheer went up when they emerged, Emma proudly showing off her new name, written in the judge's elegant hand. Time to celebrate, Sarah announced, wiping happy tears. The main house is all decorated, and there might just be a certain chocolate cake waiting. But as they headed for their cars, a familiar face approached. Robert's wife, Caroline, looking older than her years, stepped forward hesitantly. I wanted to apologize, she said softly. Thomas, what he did, I had no idea. Colton's arm tightened protectively around Mira, but his voice was gentle. We know, Caroline, and the ranch will honor its commitment to your family trust. Your children won't suffer for their father's choices. Tears spilled down Caroline's cheeks. Thank you, and congratulations. Anyone can see this is how it was meant to be. The drive back to Thunder Valley Ranch was filled with Emma's chatter about her new name, Lucas's serious questions about ranch responsibilities, and Sarah's plans for the celebration waiting at home. But Mira's attention was caught by the changes. In the landscape, the winter snow had melted, revealing the first hints of spring. New grass pushed through the soil, promising renewal. The ranch itself seemed to glow in the afternoon light, no longer just a business empire, but a true family. Legacy. In the great room, the family portrait had been joined by others, candid shots of their life together. Emma on her first pony, Lucas helping Frank with the spring calves, Mira and Colton's intimate winter wedding in front of the fireplace. Moments that told the story of not just what they'd survived, but what they'd built. "Welcome home, Blackthorns," Sarah announced as they entered, the house warm with the smell of celebration and the sound of happy voices. Home. They were finally, truly home. The Christmas card captured the moment perfectly. The Blackthorn family. In front of their grand fireplace, the old rifle watching over them like a guardian of their happiness. Emma in a red velvet dress, Mr. Hoppy sporting a matching bow, Lucas proud in his first Western suit, looking more like Colton every day. And the parents themselves, Mira glowing in maternal grace, Colton's arm protectively around them all. "Your first Christmas as the Blackthorns," read the elegant script below the photo. Sarah had insisted on sending them to everyone connected with Thunder Valley Ranch, a declaration of the new era that had begun. 1 year had changed everything. The ranch had flourished under the family's united leadership, its profits now dedicated not just to business growth, but to a foundation helping victims of domestic violence. David's case had led to a statewide investigation of medical abuse, bringing justice to dozens of women. Roberts's betrayal had sparked reforms in corporate governance, with Thunder Valley Ranch leading the way. But the real changes were smaller, more precious. They lived in Emma's fearless laughter as she rode her pony across spring meadows, in Lucas's quiet confidence as he learned the ranch operations, no longer bearing the weight of being his family's protector. In the way Mira walked tall now, her smile reaching her eyes, her nursing skills turned to helping others at the foundation. And in Colton himself, who had discovered that true power lay not in empires of land and money, but in the love of a family, who had saved him as surely as he had saved them. "Daddy!" Emma's voice rang through the house. "The carolers are here." They gathered on the front porch, watching the local choir sing in the crisp December evening. The ranch hands and their families joined them, creating a community bound by more than just employment. Frank stood with Sarah, both beaming with pride at what their beloved ranch had become. Later, as the children hung their stockings and set out cookies for Santa, Mira found Colton in his study. He was looking at their wedding photo, taken right, where they now stood. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Just thinking about that day in the woods," he smiled, turning to hold her, "when a desperate mother and her children saved a bitter man who'd forgotten what really mattered, and found their own salvation in return. Through the open door they could hear Emma reading The Night Before Christmas to Mr. Hoppy, Lucas correcting her pronunciation of the bigger words. The sound of their children's voices, safe and happy, was better than any Christmas carol. "They want to leave milk for the reindeer, too," Mira laughed softly. "Sarah's going to help them with carrots." "Of course she is." Colton's eyes were tender. "You know, my father always said Thunder Valley Ranch would be my legacy, but he was wrong." "Oh?" He gestured to the Christmas card on his desk, their families. "Joy captured in perfect stillness. This is my legacy, our legacy. Everything else is just details." Outside, snow began to fall, adding fresh beauty to Thunder Valley Ranch. But the real warmth, the real magic, was inside, where a family born of courage and choice celebrated their first Christmas together, their future as bright as the star. Atop their tree, the old rifle above the fireplace gleamed in the Christmas lights, no longer a symbol of protection needed, but of protection given, of love chosen, of happiness earned. The Blackthorns were home.